Welcome to the third webinar on the ABC series of Managing Change. And firstly, I just wanted to thank you all for the very kind feedback that you've been sharing. We're delighted that you're finding these sessions really thought-provoking and helpful for you in these times. As of last week, we actually have a special guest with us this week as well, which we're delighted for. I will just share my screen and then we'll kick off into the session. There we go. Right, hopefully you can all see that. Okay, so today is stabilisation. So firstly, I'll just let our special guest this week introduce himself. So Dave, if you'd like to give a little introduction to yourself, please.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Dave Stewart here. I'm the founder and MD of the Fresh Air Leadership Company. My background spans being in a rock band, a mountain rescue team, a first career in the military, including special forces, and latterly leading at senior levels in private, public and not-for-profit sectors. What we do at Fresh Air Leadership is we take generally people outdoors together, which we can't do just now, and we work with things like mindset, the way people think, the way they relate to each other, and basically the courage to take bold decisions. So that's me and that's us.
And obviously Dave Stewart, rock band. I have to ask, unless the face changed when the beard came off, but not that rock band.
No, it wasn't with Annie Lennox, but the rock band was in Aberdeen, where Annie Lennox came from. So there is a tentative link there.
Perfect. Now, so you'll hear a little bit more from Dave later. So thank you very much, Dave. So just to reset the scene on where we are, we've been sharing a three-stage process to managing change. So last week we went through crisis management, about dealing with the immediate, sudden concern, and today is about stabilisation, so helping us now get that into a kind of even keel. So stabilisation, what do we actually mean? What are we trying to achieve with this? Well, to use our same analogy from last week we had the hot air balloon that was approaching the big mountain, and we needed to get over that mountain. So jettison some of the weight, some of the costs, put some extra impetus, some extra money in. We're still over the mountain range, so we cleared the first one, but we need to stay up there. And that's what we're trying to do with stabilisation. So the first thing is maintaining safety. And what we mean there is maintaining solvency. So making sure that we keep our cash flow the right side and we stay above those peaks. But then beyond that, it's actually about getting back into business. And we touched on this at the end of last week's session. So we need to actually all start being genuine business again. And that's really getting that cash register ticking over. So we need money in, we need money out, and actually starting to buy and sell. On top of that, it's about maintaining our brand visibility and profile. So that's really, really important in times like this, that we don't just go quiet. People can see us, they can see what we're doing, they can see we're doing good things. Maintaining and building relationships. So that's both our existing ones, but also taking this opportunity to build new relationships with people, and absolutely taking the time for strategy and planning. So we're using this time productively and sensibly. What it doesn't mean is just sitting there and doing nothing. So it isn't a holiday. It's not just a kind of time to sit back. This is the single biggest challenge most of us will face in our business careers. The people who are at highest risk are those who do just sit and do nothing. So for the opportunity here is actually looking at what we can do and making sure we are active in this space and thinking forward about our business. But if we need to do something, then the question is how and what. And that's what we want to start covering in this session and session next week as well. So firstly, let's actually just try and simplify it. There's so much going on, there's so much uncertainty. We talked about this in the previous sessions. So let's just try and break it into different time bands. So in reality, what I've got here is 3 different time windows. So we've got the now and the next 4 weeks. We've then got a little bit further out, so 2 to 3 months, and then beyond that. But beyond doesn't go beyond 12 months, probably not even beyond the end of this year, because it's too much uncertainty the further we go out. So we're looking at things we can control. If we think about our different stages, the crisis management was obviously the immediacy of now am I still in business? Am I still going to be in business the next couple of weeks? Stabilisation starts from now as well. And really stabilisation, we're talking from now and looking forward for those next 4 weeks. And then moving forward is we can start thinking about that over the next couple of weeks, and we'll start implementing that really from 4 weeks out as things start to move and what we can do differently. Today, obviously, we're focusing in this window around from now over the next 4 weeks and getting ourselves steady, getting ourselves back in business. And that's the real key. Okay. So at this stage, we've got this model, and I'm not going to talk about this model because this is well, I'll hand over to Dave. What I will just say is this is Dave actually shared this on LinkedIn last week, and it sits really neatly with the same 3 phases we're talking about of the first couple: staying well, staying afloat, being crisis management, and what we talked about last week, and then into promote, comply, care, and share, building resilience into that stabilisation, and then looking forward in terms of capability and purpose. So at this stage, I will hand over to Dave and let him take you through.
So thanks, Neil. I think a couple of points just to bring out in this. This is a tool that we use as a matter of course, but also for when a big opportunity comes along or there's some sort of crisis, obviously, as we're experiencing just now. It's premised on the fact that you have values in your business and you have a purpose to it. And the different layers which sort of call up Maslow allow you to think about the resilience of your whole framework. So think about purpose, think about the values, and think about resilience. And it helps you decide on the key decisions you need to make at any particular time, and it helps you make decisions which are aligned to your purpose and values. So as Neil's explained, we're looking at stabilisation today. So in our model, we've got values around being safe, being ethical, being environmental, being legal. We always want to reach out, collaborate, we want to check in with people, and we want to trust and be trusted. So those are important values to us. But the point about this model also is the fact that sometimes we can get seduced into building fantastic capability, doing things with knobs and whistles on it. But if we don't also pay attention to those lower foundational levels, we can get caught out, as perhaps some of us have got caught out in this present crisis. So it's always about staying well. It's always about staying afloat. It's all about those things. Now we've used, in fact, you move on to the next one, Neil. Because of the military background that I've got, we've used an approach to understand complexity and making decisions and developing courses of action, derived from the military. And this process has been stress tested in numerous decades and lots of complex multi-actor situations. Essentially, we start off by reminding ourselves what is the purpose of our business or our mission, and that really is the start point. We then look at the model and say, right now, what is the most urgent of our strategic drivers do we need to attend to? So in the context of today's webinar, it's about promoting and complying and caring and sharing. We then look at what constraints have been imposed on our normal freedoms of actions and what freedoms and opportunities have actually arisen because of this. So it's not all doom and gloom. Every situation has opportunities in it. So this question list actually forces or encourages you to think about that. We then look at the different courses of action open to us. And we define the circumstances as reminding us about our purpose, the drivers, the constraints and freedoms. What do those combination of factors, what does that give us? You then look at the various courses of action, and then you stress test each one of them, and perhaps use a red team, perhaps confer with a business partner or someone else to just actually get a different mind working on it, and then choose a favorable course of action, and then say, what other information do I need before I commit to this? And just a little note here, the longer you wait for the perfect information, the more chance you have of your opportunity disappearing. So it's a real balance about what information you need to act before you actually act. And then finally, but not finally, it's keeping on cycling through this question list and looking at all these levels all the time to try and keep you resilient and in balance. So really, just to summarize, keep an eye on all levels, but obviously for this particular session, we're looking at the middle set of levels, but be wary of all the levels all the time. Keep on cycling, keep an eye on your purpose, stay true to your values, and think about the resilience of your whole enterprise. Neil, I think we just leave it there and we can pick up anything in the Q&A at the end of this.
So I'd unmute myself. Thank you very much for that, Dave. So I think this is a really powerful tool, and for me, if this works for the military in when they're having to make decisions in really high pressure environments, then it's got to work for the rest of us. What I wanted to do now is take some of this and try and talk about, so actually how do we use this in practice, because that's the important part for yourselves in business. So if we start off and think just around what Dave's talked about there. So initially we've got the purpose. So we all have a purpose for our organization. We know why we do what we do, and we talk to that about people. We have our assets, and I've talked to them about this in previous sessions as well. So this is what we're good at. This is our skills, our expertise, our unique that we can bring that other people can't. It may be also some of the materials or products or services we have as well. And then we have the problems that people face. So what is it out there today that we can help people with? And it's a bit like starting from scratch with a blank piece of paper and thinking about, so what have we got? What's our assets that we've got that can help people with problems? Does that align with our purpose? But all these things actually do interrelate. So we've got to think about their problems. It may mean our purpose changes slightly. So, and as long as that's okay with our values, but you saw that in Dave's slide as well around, do we need to adapt and think about that? And then what I encourage you all to do is actually do a model and sit down and think about this for each of your organizations. So what I've taken here is these are some of Dave's questions, if you like, out there. So what of our existing business model is still needed, i.e. there's still problems that people have that will help them resolve. So is it still viable? What of our existing business model is not? This is constraints may have got in the way, or maybe we can do it, but we need to adapt it and change it. So it's still delivering broadly the same, but we need to do it somehow differently. So that's kind of Dave's question 3. And then there's new opportunities. So actually constraints have lifted. I've talked in previous sessions around the world has got smaller. We're all now used to using this kind of collaborative tool. So constraints have eased on that way. Geography constraints have gone. So what opportunities does that present? And secondly, what new problems are out there that people are facing today that they weren't facing before coronavirus hit, that we might have the skills, expertise, products, services to help them with. So it's looking at these, and those two are kind of Dave's question 4. And then the 3 time periods I put out before is essentially what Dave talked about in question 5. So this is thinking about the actions you can take to resolve these in each of those 3 different time periods. And immediately we're going to start, it's easier to look shorter term all the time. So think about now in the next 4 weeks, but also think about 2 to 3 weeks, think about beyond. The announcement we expected yesterday came out, so lockdown is in place for the next 3 weeks. Some information is starting to filter out or be suggested around how it might look when lockdown starts to be eased. So it's not just going to be a switch to tap back off and go back to normal. There are things around we might need to have some of these ability to check and testing in place. People might need to have some form of passport to say that actually they're clear or they've not got it. So there's various different things were in place. It's likely there will still be certain restrictions around the number of people who can get together when we're starting to relieve. So we've got to think about these and how that might affect our business. I encourage you to have a think about these. We've done some worked examples, but we'll share that on next week's session in the move forward, looking at both 4 weeks and beyond, because actually the process for both the stabilisation piece and the move forward is the same. It's just the time period is different. So we'll work through some of those in next week's session. Then actually, if we think so, many of you know I sit on one of the IOD committees, so I'm always close to what the IOD are doing. IOD obviously are out there as thought leaders on leadership and what it's about. And actually this very much aligns to what the IOD talks about from leadership as well. So if we think about our role as leaders of businesses, we've got to think about what we have internally and externally. So internally is our team for our business, externally is to the market, to our shareholders. And again, they've got 2 time periods. So the time periods are different because this is in normal circumstances, not in coronavirus. So I've kind of made the in-year focus almost 4 weeks, and the future focus is a little bit beyond. But this is, again, our stabilisation and our move forward on each of these two pieces. So it's very much, these are things we should be doing. So right now, it's about making sure our staff are okay. The good leaders care about their people first and check there first. And that's why it's number one in implementation. Budgetary control is making sure we can control our money, staying in business, making sure environment, health, safety are okay, and resolving those key issues. That's just getting the basics in place first. Accountability is what we're doing for people out there. But then once we start going beyond, and next week, we're looking into what could I do? The vision, the goals, the themes, looking at the horizon, what might change, and thinking about our strategy and building new capability to help us move on those. I did want to talk about the elephant in the room. So I've been asked this question on some of the other sessions. The quote I put was actually from the BBC News last night. So they're going around talking to business leaders. Actually, I think it was when it was on Reporting Scotland afterwards, and they had a gentleman saying, it's actually really easy for us to stay busy in business. There's loads of things we can do. It's much more difficult to stay profitable. And this is some of the problems we've all had is when can I start talking about money with clients? So if we need to get back in business, we need to get the cash till ticking over, we need to start buying and selling. That only works if I can sell, but it's a difficult time to sell. There have been things on LinkedIn where people are trying to promote stuff and have had quite a lot of vitriol pointing in a direction for having selling, and they're not trying to profiteer, they're just trying to talk about products and services. I align it a bit like I've also seen you get some people complaining about others out walking, and they don't feel they're adhering to the 2 meters. And one lady apparently came out with a tape measure in the meadows the other day and was measuring the distance between the guys. One of them said, "I'm 6 foot. I can lie down and show you. We're more than 2 meters apart." And someone else was complaining about a family out walking, and the young boy was running a couple of meters ahead of the mum and dad, not near anyone else, but just they felt it was inappropriate. It's this same space. So there's still this sentiment around the moral side of this. But actually, the world, as we've talked about before, needs businesses to be in business. People will switch on to this, and you can see and hear that sentiment is starting to change. What we want to do is just tread carefully, because we don't want to be tarred the wrong way. The conversation I'd encourage you to have on this is, firstly, let's try and help. It's all about helping one another. And again, that was in Dave's piece around in his model. How can we help and help other people? But actually, if we've got the ability to help people resolve their challenges and problems, people have and always will pay for that. So the question is around value. So does it feel worth what we're charging? And the second question is around affordability, that genuinely some people right now might not be able to. I was chatting with some clients who are marketeers, and they had some of their clients who desperately wanted to market right now. Actually, it's a great time to do marketing, but they genuinely were anxious about, can we afford it? We don't have money coming in, and this could put us out of business. Well, clearly they can't. But I was saying to the marketeers, well, maybe you talk about a buy now, pay later, i.e., you know what, you need it, you want it, we'll do it for you now, but we'll come to an arrangement where it's appropriate to pay later. And again, I'd encourage you to just have an honest, authentic conversation with your clients around, pay what you can afford. And if you can't afford anything, you know what, that's okay, because it's just the right thing to do. But let's start trying to have that conversation, because actually it will help us all when we get to the point of being able to start actually having money moving around. So we shall move to Q&A. A question I've just had there. So yes, we will share the slides and the video. So we record this as well. So we'll share the links out later. We've put a page on our website, so you can catch up on all the previous slides and videos as well if you haven't caught them. We have a couple of minutes left for questions. So either for myself or Dave, if people have any questions, you can either put them into the group chat and I'll create them, or if you just want to kind of put your hand up or give a thumbs up and I'll come to you, you can ask a question. And this always takes a couple of minutes for people to start typing, but so I'll ask a question to yourself, Dave, first, whilst we're just waiting for the others. from your experience in the military, so I mean, obviously we're talking about decision making in times of crises, and in particular when you don't have all the information available. So how in the military do they go about trying to get the right decision, knowing that they don't know everything they could or ideally would like to?
Well, it's there's a process called critical information requirements or commanders information requirements, and it's about leadership by asking the killer questions or the key questions, and it's about being getting out and trying to find as much of those answers as possible, but being very wary about the timelines, because there comes, as I said earlier on, there comes a point beyond which perfect information is no good to you. So it's always a balance between the timeliness of making a decision and the quality of information you have to make the decision on. And it often ends up being a balance between intuition, experience, and data. But there's always a desire not to just rest on intuition and experience. Data is really, really important. So to answer your question, it's about understanding what are the key questions, trying to find out the information and the data, but ultimately making a decision that is a timely one.
No.
And obviously, in a business environment, it's actually asking your network and everybody you're connected with those kind of questions. It's about you building your own intelligence community in a sense. It's about using webinars. It's about LinkedIn. It's about connecting to people. It's about networking.
So I'll push a question out to the audience here at this point. So put answers in group chat, please. So what are your biggest concerns right now for your own businesses? Are you still, I guess, in terms of our phases we talk about, is anyone still anxious about crisis management and are they in business or not? Or if not, if people are in stabilisation, what's causing you concern and what's blocking you from getting back into sales? So there's a few different bits in there. So if people are still in crisis, just put crisis management. If people are in stabilisation, what is it you know, what is it you don't know that would help, or what's holding you back? Whilst you're doing that, Malcolm, you've got a question there. Do you want to unmute yourself and actually ask that for everyone?
Yeah, hi, how you doing, Neil? No, I just thought I would just pose the question to you about that point on being busy and remaining or returning to profitability, because there's a judgment to be made there, because the way things have changed in terms of approach to work, at least in the short to medium term, means that there's a different set of approaches and potentially a different packaging of products. So how do you actually judge whether you're just being busy or contributing towards the return of your business to profitability? There's obviously a balance to be found there.
No, look, that's a really good question. And look, I'm speaking as someone who's giving out free webinars to people on stuff to help you all move forward. So we're not charging for this. Does this help us towards profitability? Well, if we actually look at some of our strategic aims from ABC before even coronavirus started, one of our three main priorities was building up a profile of us as being experts at what we do and people's understanding and seeing our capability. So for us, that is a core tenet of what we're about. And if we can help people do that and that presents us in a good light, then actually that is a return to profitability. We believed even before coronavirus that if enough people saw us in action, they would say, these guys know what they're doing. And later, if they come to a point where they think, ooh, I wonder who could help me with that, hopefully they'll remember us and then come back to us. So I think that there's pieces we can do of being busy if it's putting out there. And that's why I was very, on the early slide I talked about it, the visibility and profile is really important. The relationships, both maintaining or reigniting maybe relationships you've had but have let quiet, or brand new ones, these are really productive things you can do with your time. Now, they might not be making money today, but they are all helping that return to profitability so that they're worthwhile activities. Just being sat at your desk and doing stuff isn't necessarily answering that question. So I think it's a really important thing we would do this naturally anyway, is for every activity you should think about, does this contribute towards our strategic aims and our top 3 priorities that we do as a business? And if the answer is yes, it does, then it's good activity for doing. If the answer is no, it doesn't, then you might just be being a busy fool, as we say. So I think it's do put that lens over everything you do. Does that help answer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as much as anything, I think it's a question that I'm getting posed to me. So I have my answers to it. So it's very interesting to hear yours, and it definitely augments what I've been saying to people. So thank you.
So interesting question from Alan there around how quickly after lockdown we'll be able to start to sell re-engaged clients. So I'd challenge back actually on that, Alan, and say I think you could and should be doing it now. So lockdown shouldn't be preventing you certainly engaging with clients. The question I was trying to pose, the elephant in the room one is the sales. So again, let's view sales in 2 ways. There's one is doing a piece of work for someone. The second is a monetary value being applied to that. Again, right now, if people have need and we can help them, then certainly we can sell and do stuff. The question is, at what point can we start charging? And that's the trickier bit to have. As I said, for me, the question is, you could have an honest conversation around affordability. There's also a piece of if we help another business get back in business, so they're not earning now, with our help they maybe start selling themselves, it doesn't feel unreasonable that when they start having money coming in, that actually then that can be shared out. So having an honest conversation with people about what the right timing is, I think is fair. But don't wait for lockdown to start engaging. Russell, who's on's been setting up a series of sales webinars with Fraser Morrison, who's excellent salesperson. He introduced in one of the ones he was talking about, look, people are talking about when can I sell. He said he is still selling during this period. He knows lots of people are still able to sell during this period. The lockdown hasn't prevented that for him and a lot of the clients they're working with. So there is still money there and people are still buying if it's presented in the right way. So we do have to present things slightly differently, but we don't necessarily just have to stop now and wait. It's about thinking what we can do and how to do it.
Could I say something on that, Neil?
Please do, Russell. Yeah.
So we had a very interesting event yesterday, and we had experts from a couple of large corporates talking, one from the US, and they were running through the scenario that IBM follow at a time like this. So IBM have a team of people whose responsibility is to do nothing until a disaster or a crisis happens. When that happens, that group are then sent into the government or large organisation to offer support. So IBM would have gone into, for example, the British government and offered whatever support they can that the British government needs, and they would have done that free of charge. So that's a funded team that's there explicitly for that reason. The reason IBM do that is to gain access to key decision makers so that as we go further down the line, you've got the opportunity to build commercial opportunities. And that's what we should all be doing. We should be getting in at the most senior level into our target clients and trying to see how we can help. That's number one. Number two is there's a lot of people selling out there. You know, if you look at the rather unusual ones, so home bakery equipment sales are going through the roof. So what I would suggest to people, so I've done a lot of work with e-commerce companies where we're just trying to spend every penny we can raise on PPC and advertising. So there are opportunities out there, but you've got to think a bit more creatively about where they lie. But now's the time for the small independent player to be able to take advantage of those.
Thank you, Russell. And we've talked about that in previous sessions around, for us, we're able to be much more nimble and agile. Now, Hugh's made a really good point in the chat there around, he feels he's been sold to by a couple of people who's put him off, which is then making him anxious about the right timing of selling to other people. We talked about the change curve in week 1. Different people will be at different phases of that curve. Right now, there's more business owners at the further side wanting to start getting back in business, but we're anxious about if we're chatting to people who are still over the other side, it feels inappropriate. So it will be different for each organisation. Again, what Fraser's been talking about in his sessions is about rapport and listening to people. So the first thing we have to do with any of our clients, be they new, be they existing, is, I mean, I said to all my team a couple of weeks ago, let's just pick up the phone and speak to everyone. No sales about it. We're just saying, how are you doing? How are you coping? And let's have a chat. And so many people were just like, it's really nice just to chat to someone. And actually we were doing as primarily over the phone, and they quite like that because we're all getting a bit zoomed out. So they were kind of a bit fed up of all the Zoom things, and just having a normal conversation the way it used to be about stuff went down well. But by having a conversation to people and understanding where they are, you'll get a sense of people you can have a more progressive conversation with, and other people who aren't ready yet, and that's fine. But it's judging about each person, and if we try to push them too fast or jump ahead of them, then we can alienate them. And Hugh, that would be my thoughts on that one. Just any other quick questions in there? So a lot of people, and we've got some accountants on, obviously they're very busy helping all their clients, HR people, and we've got some of those on likewise. So some people are very, very busy in these times, and that's normal. Others are more quiet. It's making use of the time, but to Malcolm's point earlier, it's making use of the time in the right way, in the stuff which adds value to our business going forward. So that's kind of taken us up to time. So thank you very much for joining us again. Next week is all about moving forward. So it's taking us beyond the stabilisation phase. We'll actually start off with the model that Dave shared today, but actually the little table I showed will work through some of the worked examples on that. So one's a kind of live case of company, but then also looking at some of the different sectors and how they might be impacted and affected, and some of the opportunities it presents, just to try and stimulate that thought. And we'll talk through the process for all of you there. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. The slides and the video will get posted up to our website, and we'll send a link for you after that. Have a good weekend, everyone.